All right, let's see if this actually connects. I think I have a connection. I guess we'll find out. Let's see. It says excellent on YouTube. My connection is excellent. All right, so what are we doing today? All right, so first stream of the year. Actually, first stream on this channel ever. And it is January 6th, 2025. It's a brand new year. Happy New Year to anybody that comes back and finds this broadcast. But recently, I've been experimenting a lot with, so it's kind of been an evolution of no coding tools. I guess I started with no code stuff and then got really into automations and Airtable and make.com and that kind of thing, and wiring those two things together to produce like automations and stuff. But I never really had a good grasp on the front end of things. So couldn't really figure out how to tie everything together. Which sort of, just continuing to explore that space, ultimately ended up discovering new tools, like stuff that I think has really been on the block for, I don't know, past few months, past year, maybe in a few forms, but I'm constantly iterating with ChatGPT, things like that. So I've been, experimenting with OpenAI and again, really trying to get Make to do a lot of the heavy lifting because I don't really mess with code. I mean, I can sort of like look at the code and figure out what's going on, and that's just probably from just years of dinking around with like WordPress setups and configurations, things like that. But anyways, where does that lead us? That leads us to tools like this, which is Lovable. So there's a few of these on the market. This is one that I've been using the most, mostly because I ended up stumbling across this promotion through the AI Engineer Pack, through the GitHub integration. Some of these things don't even ask me. Like GitHub, I didn't even know really what you were supposed to do with GitHub like a year ago. I knew it existed for a long time, but I just thought of it as a place where people stored code. I didn't really know how it connected to anything in the world. So that's GitHub. Just rambling here, but it is early. So the whole point of this is I'm going to start streaming and attempt to stream this, make this a more regular thing. But I've really wanted to bring all the ideas that I have with Lovable, or just for any building applications, to life. Now that I actually have a tool that can help me interpret what's in my brain and get it out there in the world. Whereas before, I always got hung up on the code aspect. So I tried previous things like, Bubble, and it's more like, I felt like Bubble's more like a WYSIWYG like editor, kind of like what you see is what you get, and then you have to configure a bunch of modules, and if your settings aren't right, then you get hung up and spun around in circles. That's not to say that building with Lovable is any different. It's just a different kind of circle. So, which is just a little bit easier for me to navigate in terms of my brain. So, Lovable, what this stream is about, AI coding. It may not always be specific to Lovable, but because it's my daily driver right now, and I'm most familiar with Lovable because I've been building on it now for the past month, we'll probably stick with that for the foreseeable future. I'm most comfortable with it, prompting in it. I kind of understand how to speak to it. It's kind of like a language in terms of prompt engineering, and just, I've been able to get the best results from what's in my brain onto an app, which resembles what is going on in my head and actually looks like it when it translates to the computer from Lovable. So that's why I'm going to stick with it. I'm coming up on my first actual renewal where I'm going to have to pay for the thing. So it's going to get serious here in a little bit. And so I figured, why not just pop on a stream and just sort of build, whether I'm building an app like this one, for instance. This is a Soundscape app that I built in a day. It's kind of an iteration of some other projects that have just sort of culminated in, this, which is a Soundscape generator. But I've always been interested in like sound design and things like that. And so with AI and image generation and prompting, like these are, again, I'm all over the place with this, so just bear with me. This is just my first stream, and I'm sure, as they say, it can only get better, right? I don't think that's actually the case. I do think things can get worse, but it's like, ebbs and flows, right? So we'll just ride it out and see what we get. All right, so baseline stream, Happy New Year, if I didn't already say that. It's the 6th. It's like the first full week, I think, that everybody's sort of getting back into doing stuff. So we're going to try to do stuff with code and AI. Like I said, I'm not a coder by trade. I can kind of see it, read it, but don't know how to edit things without breaking them most of the time. All right, so what are we going to do right now? Let's do this. Let's just talk about the app that I built, because I submitted that I built it for a contest that Lovable is running. And Lovable was running that as a result of some hiccups last week where GitHub kicked them off. So GitHub disconnected, like, they were just, I guess, the way this works is Lovable, when you edit your code, this shoves it or creates a repository on GitHub. And then anytime you edit or make changes, then it syncs with GitHub or creates a revision or pushes some sort of commit. I don't know what the technical terms are, but pushes it, and then so there's some sort of synchronization. And so people, I imagine, are building things at an extremely high rate, especially as Lovable grows. And they're just GitHub seeing way more requests, that kind of thing. And then ultimately GitHub said enough of that and just disconnected their thing, which kind of broke everything. So like last Thursday or Friday, I think there was a hiccup and that went down. Lovable went down, pretty much was not really usable for a while, like the whole day, or maybe almost a full day. So Lovable said, hey, you know what? They got it fixed. They worked it out. The Lovable developers, I think, are from Sweden. The whole team, I think, primarily is from Sweden. So time zone, I'm in California, and so it's, working hours a little bit different. Anyways, Lovable sorted it out. GitHub, they're cool. Everything's back to normal. But as a result of the complications, they said, all right, for paid members, and technically I'm a paid member because I did sign up for a subscription, albeit it was using the AI Engineer Pack. They basically said free credits for the weekend. So the way Lovable works is there's a messaging system. So if you look at your history, for instance, I've got this history of messages. And so like these are, and I haven't quite figured it out because I don't think these directly correlate with message usage. So if you go to a homepage, for instance, if I go to my dashboard and I click on my settings, I think settings in here somewhere, settings, you'll see that I have, as a result of being on the signing up for I think it's the launch program, I've got 250 monthly messages, right? And then this is the quota, so 24 out of 250. So I basically have 24 left for the month before I run out. So I was given 250. If you're a free member, you can get 5 out of 5. You can use 5 messages per day, which will get you, you'll get a concept of how Lovable works, like with 5 messages, but you're not really gonna have a good sense of like what you can do with it until I think you sign up for a subscription. So 250 certainly lasts me a while. I spent quite a bit of time on a different project, and that's where most of my messages went. But the thing I like about Lovable specifically is if we get back into a project here, let me just open the one that my Soundscape here. Let's talk about the UI for a second, because what I like to do specifically is throw this into chat-only mode. So this is, again, one of the things that is more unique and specific to Lovable as opposed to some of the other stuff out there. Because when you switch to chat-only mode, then you kind of, this is very similar to, if anybody's paying attention or in the space and you've seen the Replit changes. Replit has there are 2 modes, which is like the agent and then like the assistant. And so with their new pricing model with Replit, it's like 25 cents per agent execution. So not like John Wick execution, but if it does something, if it changes the code, then it's like 25 cents. And so that quickly, 4 changes, it's $1, it just adds up pretty quickly if you're using their agent. So then they also have what's called an assistant, which is like 5 cents per pushed commit change or whatever. So you can you could use the assistant, it kind of understands your code, and you can talk to it that way. So I think of this as very similar in terms of how Lovable has translated that. I don't know if there was any inspiration there, but I specifically like to operate when I'm using Lovable in chat-only mode most of the time. I'd actually prefer that it stay in chat-only mode, and then there'd be options in the dialogue that anytime I want to commit something, I can just press a button and it's like, okay, go ahead, make the change, and then execute. Take the token, take the message out of my allotted amount per month. But for now, anyways, the chat only mode is free. So if you just talk to it, like for instance, this is my most recent message. It was in chat only mode. And I'm trying to figure out if I can build this, I can put sound effects in a, we can tell you what, let's pause there for a second. Let's do this. Pause there. Let's drink some coffee because it is AI coding in coffee. I'm just going to tweet this real quick. Nobody's around, or nobody even knows I'm streaming or do anything like this. So let's just tweet this real quick. I don't know if there's an easy way to do this from, actually, tell you what, let me pop on YouTube and see if I can track down the stream. Hold on. I'm gonna have to switch accounts. You know, so many accounts these days. Okay, so I think if I go to me, there should be a stream of me running somewhere. Or I should be able to see it. Why can't I see it? View channel. All right, here we go. I got it. Maybe later. Okay, let's share this. Can I share this? Yes, I can share this. All right, I'm going to copy the link. I'm going to push this to Twitter real quick. And just in case anybody's around and wants to hear me babble for a while. All right. Let's just call this, I'm going to call this AI coding. Whoa. AI coding and coffee. Coffee with 3. Coffee live stream. Coffee. It's early. It's, I mean, it's 8. I want to do the stream earlier so I can be, you know, I just want to do this thing first in the morning. So I'm going to usually be drinking coffee, which is why it's going to be called AI Coding Coffee. AI Coding Coffee. Talking about my latest at Lovable. Talking about my latest at Lovable project. First stream on the new channel. Okay, I think that's good enough. Otherwise, you know, it's gonna be rough for a while. I'll tell you that much. Let me know as well, audio stuff, if all that checks out. AI, coding, and coffee. Live stream. Let's make it a little bit more exciting with coffee emoji and stuff. And a robot. Should I add a robot? Robot. Okay, now I'm getting carried away. All right, let's just do this. Let's publish it. Okay, cool. It's live. It's in the world. It's out there. Okay, where were we? Oh, okay. So before we get into talking about what I actually plan to do with this, and forgive me, talking about the latest, like how I use Lovable for the most part, especially even when I had free tokens, even for this past weekend when there was free messaging, I still use chat only most of the time. It's only when I really switch out of chat only mode when I need to execute the change. And so I would prefer, if Lovable's listening, that there is kind of a default, like, let's talk only mode, and then like through it, like for instance, if you chat with Lovable, there are certain queries or certain prompts that will initiate an action button, like, you know, action buttons. It'll either take you to referencing documents like on Superbase or whatever, or if you need to get your tokens from somewhere, it'll kind of push you there. But there's also action buttons that show up in the dialog box that will actually say, do you want to do this thing? And then you can click it. So I prefer to actually use chat only most of the time, and then switch over to implementing changes just by clicking the thing. Because there is some weird issues with it where if you're in chat only mode, sometimes when you talk to it, it's not like always understanding that it's in chat mode. I mean, most of the time it recognizes that it should just be talking to you, but sometimes based on how you prompt with it, it will say, it'll try to make changes. And then it's a little bit confusing because it looks like it's executing code changes, but if you look at the window, it'll be like 0 edits made. And then you think something happened, but then it didn't really happen. It gets a little confusing there. But again, I think this is kind of like a beta sort of mode. Like it's available in settings. So if you go into your settings, for instance, there's a thing, or it's under account settings, chat modes. So you want to make sure this is on, first of all, like to use it. But it has saved me, it saved me quite a bit in terms of messaging. And it's really, again, another reason why I just gravitate towards Lovable. So let's get back into the project so we can keep talking about what it is. That way it'll make more sense when we look at this latest query, when I'm talking about vectorizing sound effects, and what I would want to do that. I've always wanted to do some sort of vector project. That's kind of like the edge of like my knowledge base right now, is like what to do with like RAG systems, or can you use like Lovable with RAG, and how would you do that, and why would you want to do that? And so since I'm working on this project, I think this project's like, it was born this weekend, but I think it's something that I can sort of build on for the foreseeable future and implement a lot of different things from here on out. So it doesn't need to be a simple app. It can be, I think, much deeper. So we are going to just walk through this, right? So let's just do this now. Let's just walk through this and what this thing is. Let me go full screen here. Let's just stay within the interface. I'll just go full screen so it's more, visual. And so the idea here is that you can create your own soundscapes. And again, this was a submission that I did for the contest this weekend that Lovable was running to potentially win one of their packages in terms of like their monthly subscriptions. So submitted this, and we'll see. Team's, I think, reviewing submissions today, and who knows. But Lovable. All right, so this project, create your soundscape. So this is, again, this is pretty cool because like when you develop these things, you don't really have taglines in mind, but just with AI in general, like stuff comes to fruition, stuff bubbles up and you're like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. So create your own soundscape, choose how you'd like to begin your journey into sound, which sounds pretty compelling. So this is like after you log in, this is kind of your main sort of page. Like this would be the home page, for instance, or your main page. Again, this is sort of the infancy of this project and just sort of the core feature itself. So a couple options here: upload image or generate with AI. You can either upload an image from your desktop or wherever you save that image, you can just throw it in here, or you can generate with AI. So this would be more along the lines of describe a scene, and then AI will generate the scene. It'll generate a picture of it using DALL-E through an OpenAI call. And then it'll then use vision to analyze, inspect the image, and then come up with sound effects. So let's start with the simple one for now. Let's just stick with something that's on my computer, something that I think I used the demo, or maybe I did or didn't. I don't remember. But there's this bridge scene that I like a lot. This is just past creations that I've done with DALL-E once upon a time, a long time ago. Let me find it. It's kind of, I wish it would be easier to find stuff in this thing. Excuse me. All right, where to go? Where's my cavern thing? Hold on. Hiking trails. Maybe it's up here. You know what? Let's go with, I can't find it. Hold on. It's always on the live streams. Here, let's just do this one. This one's just wild. All right, so it's going to upload it. And so what it's doing right now is the image clearly is from my desktop. I previously generated an image. So this is AI, but it was previously saved. So I'm not generating the image right now. I'm just uploading it. So it uploads it, and it shoots that call over to Vision. So we're using GPT, I think Pro, or GPT, not Pro. I do not pay for Pro. Using regular GPT model, GPT-3 or 4.0, GPT 4.0, the latest probably iteration of 4.0. And so what the call is doing in the database is actually, I'm asking it to, through structure, through that prompt and a call to OpenAI, I'm asking it to create a title for the scene. So, and again, using the vision. So it called this Infernal Blaze. I didn't call it Infernal Blaze. This is what AI thought it should call it. So it's structuring in a way that I'm asking for a title, a description of the scene. So through vision, it's looking at the image that I uploaded, this scene. And it's like, okay, I need to come up with a title. I need to come up with a description. So title, description, and then what I'm asking it to do then from there is provide prompts that I could use to send to 11 Labs. So the sound effects themselves haven't been generated at this point. Not yet. They haven't been generated. Coffee and water. It's basically what I drink anyways. It's like, my kids think it's disgusting. But it's funny because it's Americano, but just the way I make it and the way, because they know it's just water and espresso, they're like, that's gross. But if you call it an Americano for some reason, it's more accessible, or it's just more understandable. Anyways, where were we? All right, so getting back to it. Infernal Blaze. Description: a massive roaring inferno engulfs the cityscape, casting a hellish glow. That's pretty descriptive. Across the sky, thick smoke billows upwards, obscuring the stars. The intense heat crackles through the air, creating an atmosphere of chaos and destruction on an apocalyptic scale. I would say that's pretty good description. So again, AI described the scene. Now, what it's doing again behind the scenes is it's coming up with then prompts for the sounds. So in this, I've got titles for the sound. So basically, it's coming up with the description for the sound that we're going to then send to 11 Labs. So in this particular case, roaring flames, right? Roaring flames. It's probably the primary aspect of this scene. Loud crackling flames, consuming structures, accompanied by the occasional crash of collapsing buildings. That's a pretty complicated sound effect. I still need to do some work with the engineering of the sounds, because I think I haven't used 11 Labs enough, especially the text to sound effects option, to know like the best way to structure the prompts. Keep them simple, or should they be more nuanced or complex? Because some of the stuff that I get back from 11 Labs is garbage. It's just not great. Other times nails it. Other times just not good. So here's another one, thick smoke whoosh. And so I like what it's doing. Again, I've got a short version and then basically a long version. So the sound of dense smoke swirling, sweeping through the air, creating an oppressive, suffocating atmosphere. Distant sirens, high-pitched wall of emergency sirens, barely audible over the, I don't even know how to pronounce this word, cacophony, signaling urgent but helpless action. It's just very vivid. So these are pretty cool in the sense that they're very vivid, which is why, again, I'm thinking about using some sort of vector-based embeddings to save these. Because right now I'm not saving any of these sound files. Like, they're being generated, but they're not going anywhere. I'm not using them for anything. And in the future, I'd like to rely less on the 11 Labs gen for the sound effects, and build a library that then people could use to build their own soundscapes, which are like curated, so that they don't get as much like questionable sound effects, right? So anyways, this is high-pitched wall of emergency sirens, cries and shouts. So what's going to happen now is when I click these, let's just close the descriptions because it's annoying me that this dialog window is expanding like that. Roaring flames. So what happens now is, before I had this render the scene, before what I was doing was I was rendering the scene, and so when it would come back, it would just preload everything. It would make all the calls at once to 11 Labs. And I was getting some limiting stuff like errors through Lovable. Basically, I think I was being rate limited, or the way that I was sending the calls, which again are things that are way more technical than my mind allows me to understand, like what's actually happening. But based on back and forth, trying to fix the errors, I think the problem was I was just sending too many requests at once, or they were all going too fast and I had to buffer them. I think I was getting rate limited, something like that. Anyways, it wasn't working very well. Plus, I was eating up a ton of tokens, even for sounds that I didn't even use or listen to. So I was like, especially during development, like how can I save on 11 Labs calls? So let's just load these, because we have the descriptions, we can build out the sound cards, but I don't even need to make the call until somebody presses play. And then from there, it can almost feel like the sound effect's just loading, when in fact, it's not loading. It's generating the effect. So let's just listen to Roaring Flames and see what we get back. Let's start one by one. I couldn't do this on the demo because there's just not enough time. Plus, I don't have a verified Twitter account, so. Okay, so that's pretty cool, right? I do have, and we can minimize this and just like take in all of its, glory. And we can even go full screen if, to make it more immersive. But so that's, yeah, there's like a rumbling bass in there. That one's actually pretty cool. And so what I'd like to do is like save that, like save this effect. Again, save it as a file, catalog it, make it available, just do stuff with it because I like the sound effect. Right now, like I get that the core thing is building a soundscape, but I think I'd like to focus on the library itself and curating the sounds as a result of this process. So, users would be able to build their soundscapes, but in the process, we're actually creating content, which then we can use later, or it would make for a better catalog that people can create more immersive soundscapes and sound scenes and things like that. All right, so Roaring Flames, you can, in terms of adjustments right now, they're basic. You can turn the volume down. You can turn it up, make it louder. You can, I switched from HTML audio, which is the basic call, so playing the file as is from 11 Labs to, I guess, a web audio API, something like that. Basically, I'm applying some crossfading to this. Again, in the future, users would be able to have like sound effect level control over the effect itself. So I'd like, you to be able to independently adjust the crossfade or whatever you need to do to make this sound a little bit more seamless. Because if you crank this up, there's going to be a point where you probably hear it like you probably hear the. Actually, this one's pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I would want to like save this, like hard it, add it to my collection, something like that. Again, these are all future features that I have not built in to this, but I really think is something that I can do using Lovable because I've gotten this far and I feel like it's totally doable. I feel like at this point anything's really doable. Instead of Lovable, it should just be called doable because doable.dev because I feel like I can just do it. Not without headache and heartbreak, but it can get done. All right, so Roaring Flames, that's pretty cool. We can just pause that. I like that effect. We'll circle back around to what we're going to do with these effects, but for now, that came out pretty cool. Let's add another one again. So when you click it, this is actually not loading. So it's spinning, but not loading. Okay, this effect is much shorter, and you can kind of hear this. It's more like a quick. The cool thing about 11 Labs is you can actually create a file that's like up to 22 seconds long, which would be really a lot more useful, but also eats up a lot more of my subscription in terms of my 11 Labs subscription. So right now, I'm just leaving it up to 11 Labs to interpret how long it wants to make the sound effects for, but this one's really short. Like this is just like and so you can kind of feel the pattern, but once you mix it with other sounds, it kind of fades away. It just comes, that's when like the blending and stuff comes, you can play this one, and then you can fade the other one into the background, and then it becomes more of like just part of the overall scene. All right, so let's pause those two. Let's generate distant sirens. And I'm trying to, overcoming a cold, which is, I've still got like coughing and stuff, so. All right, distant sirens is pretty cool. It's like a steady sort of drone. If we want to get really fancy, I think ultimately like you'd be able to like layer these into like a Premiere style timeline or something, and then sort of like lay these out, which would be also super cool, but that seems a bit challenging. So something that I'm trying to steer clear of for the time being and just keep everything basic just until I get, more time under more time under my wings with Lovable and sort of developing using AI tools. So I have more confidence in like being able to fix stuff that breaks or adopt new features. So in the past, like this was actually an iteration. This project was a result of like some other thing that I was working on, which was more like, you know, users could save scenes. And again, I want people to be able to save soundscapes, registered users, and, you know, use this and like save this and save the settings, save the exact like levels that they had and the effects that they were using, and then have their own little library of soundscapes. You know, whether they need to study or focus or de-stress. Like this is not a de-stress scene, but this is certainly interesting. It's definitely not a stress-free soundscape by any means, but maybe game designers, I don't really know, but like I feel like a lot of people could use this for various reasons, and that part of like what I see versus what people want to do with it is, you know, that is where things could pivot, but for the time being, let's just stick with basic features. So sirens, I think the sirens came out really cool. They're kind of like, there is a place where you can hear it clip, where the track restarts. I think it's right there. So that's the kind of stuff that in the future I want, you know, fine tuning on the track level, so people, you know, you can kind of like adjust it. All right, so distant sirens, and then last time we got cries and shouts. That sounds pretty. Voices raised in panic and despair, echoing through the night as people seek escape from the relentless destruction. Okay, pretty vivid. Let's see what 11 Labs does with that, which I think, if I had to guess, it's going to mess it up. Like this is where some of the prompt engineering, especially as it relates to the sound effects, is going to be interesting. So let's just see what it does. Again, press play, sends it out. When you press play again, okay, that's not bad. It's a little robotic and hectic, but when you press play again, it's actually, you know, it's not regenerating the sound. It's just queuing it up from the database. So it's more instant. Okay, yeah, see, it's a little bit hectic. If you put it way down, like low, and you blend it with other things going on, the thick bush smoke is kind of too repetitive, but anyways, so now you have this image, which previously had no sound, nothing going on. Then, what's up, Charlie? Then you wouldn't hear anything. Like you would just, I mean, you could envision it in your mind, but this kind of like, now it has a vibe, like it's a soundscape, so. Charlie, hold on, let me just pause this real quick. It's a little bit too hectic for whatever it is, 8 in the morning. Can you let me know how much do you pay for 11 Labs and OpenAI API? All right, so it's all going to vary, Charlie, in terms of costs. You've got, so 11 Labs right now, if you go to, I don't know if they're still available, but there's this AI Engineer Pack. If you just look up Google AI Engineer Pack, actually we could probably do it on let me see if I can throw a tab up here, AI Engineer Pack. There's a lot of credits for things that you can get going. So this thing is where I got. All right, so 11 Labs, there was some coupons that were available in this pack. There were 2 packs available, which basically had a whole bunch of free tokens, free credits for different AI stuff, AI development toolkits. And Lovable was one of them, so I took advantage of that one, which put me on the $50 plan, which is about to renew, and I'm actually going to have to pay $50. So that's for Lovable. And then you've got, on the Volume 2, there was 11 Labs credits, so I took advantage of that. But basically with 11 Labs, let me just see what their current pricing is. 11 Labs, I'm on the, I think the creator plan, which is, I got 3 months free, but it's still, I don't know what the pricing per effect comes out to. They sort of price it a little bit different. So they give you this sort of pricing for the tokens. And I'm on this creator one where it gives me, basically minutes. So you basically get minutes. So this one includes 100 minutes of high quality text to speech. And I'm using the text to sound effects endpoint. I think it's the same pricing. So the text effects, the sound effects are pretty short in terms of time duration. a few seconds up to 20 seconds. So I can generate quite a few sound effects with this plan so far. I think I've used about 50%. Over the weekend though, I spent like 50% of this budget, of the tokens that I have for 11 Labs, just developing this thing. So that's 11 Labs. And then the API calls are also going to be different pricing. The DALL-E vision, if we're generating images with AI, it's more expensive. The DALL-E model is more expensive to create images. The current rates on GPT-4 API calls are fairly inexpensive. So I'm not spending a lot there generating these scenes. So hopefully that helps. If you have any other questions about pricing on this, let me know. But so far, it hasn't really costed me anything to build this thing out. But in theory, yes, this is a $50 Lovable package program that I'm currently about to pay for. The creator plan with 11 Labs, which is $11 a month, I think, for the first month if you don't have any credits. And then you've got OpenAI pricing, which is based on whatever model you're using, image model, vision model, just regular chat GPT stuff. The mini models pricing can be all over the place, but relatively inexpensive, generally speaking. All right, so that said, where were we? We're talking about, the sound effects. All right, yeah, so these go to 11 Labs, and then I've got 4 of these. And so I guess, speaking to cost, one of the reasons why I wanted to, oh yeah, for sure, Charlie, if you have any other questions, let me know. If you want to regenerate the scene, right, just reanalyze this, we can do that, and then what's going to happen is this will go back to OpenAI, and it will reinterpret the scene. So it's going to use the same image, we're just remixing the sounds, and it's going to change the title, the description, as well as the sound effects. They'll be similar-ish, but different. Similar-ish, but different. All right, so this one's called Inferno Unleashed. Roaring flames reach skyward, consuming everything in their path. So again, it's looking at the same image, it's sort of just reinterpreted it a bit different. And the sound effects are also going to be slightly different in terms of the prompts. So this, again, these are the prompts that we're sending to 11 Labs to create the effect of roaring flames. So I'm sending that to the 11 Labs endpoint, which is exactly the loud continuous roar of all-consuming fire. And so if we click the play button again, calls to 11 Labs, comes back, plays it, and we should have some roaring flames. Is that a roaring flame? Maybe if you tweak it enough, like that's where I think some post-processing would be helpful. Right now, again, I'm just using a basic web audio pipeline that just processes the effect from 11 Labs just by doing some simple crossfading, which is like as basic as it gets. So there's certainly some room to explore in terms of finessing these sounds that we get back from 11 Labs. So there's 2 things that I think affect the sound we're getting back, is the prompting as well as the post-processing that we apply to the sound. All right, so that is Inferno Unleashed. And then if we go back to the main screen, so we remixed it. And again, we're just talking about a project that I submitted for a contest that Lovable was running over the weekend, in case anybody's wondering, or Charlie, you're wondering like what I'm talking about. This is the tool that I built in a day, which is basically an iteration of some other projects that I was working on, but gave me the inspiration for this specifically. And then generate with AI. Let's do something a little bit more peaceful and serene. Like let's just do something morning, cup of coffee, sitting by the beach, staring at staring at people passing by. Is that people watching? Whatever. That would be more interesting, I think. More interesting this time of day than staring at raging infernos. So this one, so when you generate from AI, this is going to then make the OpenAI call to DALL-E. There's certainly a lot of people. It's almost like there's something in the ocean that people are gravitated towards, like there's a shark or something. And I'm just casually watching the drama that's about to unfold. This doesn't look peaceful. It looks like a lot of people in one place. So again, prompts, your mileage may vary with what you get back from image gen. And again, we could probably use different image services. Like if we wanted something more realistic that consistently generates more ambient scenes, that again is also something that we could probably explore in terms of figuring out better images to come back that are more like soundscape-ish, more ambient, more atmospheric, stuff like that. But this is called Morning Shore Stroll. Again, descriptions, and then we've got new sound effects. So we've got waves lapping, seagulls calling, murmur of voices, and coffee pouring, right? So, and again, same idea. So the pipeline here, the workflow is the same. The images went, DALL-E came back, gave us this image. I'm then sending the DALL-E image to Vision. Vision then is interpreting it, and then I'm asking it to come up with sounds that it thinks are viable for the scene that we then shoot over to 11 Labs. So waves lapping, seagulls calling, murmur of voices, so on and so forth. Just a couple UI notes. I wanted this to be like a side panel. Originally I had the cards on the bottom, but when it came to adding a description for the scene, I just thought it made more sense to put it on the left. I wanted it to be a thing that you could edit, like you could adjust the sounds, but then when you want to just focus, like just kick back and just enjoy the whatever it is, you know, wallpaper or scene, that you could sort of immerse yourself in it with the sounds, but not have the sounds like in the way. So we can hide them that way. And then over here, I learned, again, through prompting with Lovable, that there's a thing called a floating action button. Like I didn't know the technical term for, and that's what's great about AI coding tools is you learn new things. Like if you're not a developer, I wouldn't know this is called a floating action button. Like I wouldn't know how to describe it. In the future, now I know how to describe it. But I think when I prompted it, I was just like, I want a button somewhere that, you know, something modern, something cool that will allow me to remix a scene or create a new scene. And it then suggested, again, through the chat only mode. So I like to talk to Lovable this way a lot, you know, like give me some ideas. What can we do about this? And, you know, how can we change this? Or how can we make the UI more modern? Or how can we fix readability? And then it will like go through and it'll be like, all right, I think here's some options. And then I would literally be like, all right, based on what you know of this project, like, what do you suggest? Because like, it'll give me a bunch of options, but I don't know which one's the best. And then it will then be like, boom, I suggest a floating action button because, and then it will be like, because you have this thing going on and it complements the rest of your thing, we should go that route. And I'll just be like, okay, cool, let's do that. You know, and then voila, we've got a floating action button. So what the floating action button does, there's two options here to either just start over or remix the scene. So again, that's pretty much the run of the gamut in terms of like what the current scope of features in this app do. But I think there's plenty of room for growth, and I've got plenty more ideas in terms of like what I could do with it. And so now it'll just be a matter of spending, you know, the time to flesh out all these other features. But namely, I want to catalog the sounds and the scenes. I want users to be able to save scenes, load scenes, have there be some sort of like public gallery where people can share them, or you can load them or remix them, stuff like that. You know, like you would remix projects with Lovable, things like that. And then of course, if you want to just then access sounds in the future, there'll be a button over here, something like, you know, add sound or add a new sound card. And so if you can then delete these sound cards or potentially add new ones, there'd be a button, it's like add sound card, you know, and then boom, you can look through a catalog of pre-developed or sounds that were previously sent over to 11 Labs and stored, or generate completely new ones. And then we'll just continuously build the catalog. But specific to that, I'm thinking about doing some sort of like vectorizing the sound effects. And again, I don't know if that's overkill, but I've wanted to do a project that has some sort of like RAG system, or RAG's probably not the right usage for this. It's more vector, you know, so someone could do a natural language search in a catalog. So if you need a new sound for the scene, you'd be like, you know, water, waves, people walking on sand. And then through natural language, I think we'll get better results if we embed these as vectors in the database. So there's like semantic matching and stuff, as opposed to just, you know, having standard like